welcome to the Fiber Tales podcast. My name is Lærke and I'm coming to you from Odense, Denmark. Let me just start the podcast off by saying thank you very much for all your lovely comments, for all the likes, I got comments on my video and also on Instagram, and I was just so relieved that people seem to like the podcast. I got a lot of encouraging messages, so that just made me so happy, and I'm so happy to continue this experience with you. I have a lot to talk about today, so let's jump straight in with my finished objects. I managed to finish 2 objects for this last week, and the first object is the sweater I showed you on the last podcast, and it's the sweater I knit in the Retrosaria soft Donegal green colorway, as you can see, and it's my own design. It's a design I'm working on, and I hope it will be out in the middle of March. It's quite a simple sweater with a straight body and pretty straight sleeves. It has some texture on the top, and the whole idea with this sweater was to make a simple sweater that you can wear every day, but that still has a little bit of interest. So I wanted to create some textured pattern on the top, a little bit the same idea as a colorwork sweater. So instead of colorwork, it just has texture. I will show you a lot more of the sweater when we get a bit closer to the release date. I will call for testers in a week's time or so. I'm in the middle of releasing my other pattern, the Retour. I actually don't know how to pronounce that because it's in Icelandic, but my other sweater, which I named Retour, it's I'm in the middle of releasing that one, and it hopefully will be out on Wednesday, on the 31st. I have a little bit of a problem because the weather is being terrible these days, which means I'm gonna try my best to get some pictures out, but in case it doesn't work out, because I need my boyfriend to help me and he's at work and there's not a lot of moments where we can get it done, and in case I don't manage to get pictures before Wednesday, I will have to postpone the release date just a little bit, but it should be out this week, let's say. So I was talking about this one, and I'm so happy I managed to get it done. I won't try it on right now, but it fits so great. And I actually have this much left, just a little bit of yarn. I used 250 grams, so that was really great. It didn't take a lot of, and it's fairly light. And as I expected, this yarn just puffed up and bloomed when I washed it, and the pattern just laid down. It looks very nice. The bottom ribbing is flat and not bulky and doing all kind of strange things. I still have a little end to weave in, and there you can see how the yarn changed. Let me get a strand of, I showed this the last time as well, but in 2 different colors, and here you can really see, can you see how much it just puffed up? It's so strange. Anyways, so this sweater's done, and I will talk a lot more about it when we get closer to the release date. But I was very, very pleased with this finished object. And my second finished object is the scarf I was knitting on for my dad. So it just has a very simple, like a rib texture. So knit pearl, and then you change it, and so it gets this shifted fabric. And this one, it's not that long for a scarf for most people, but as my dad, he only wears the scarf like so. I think it's plenty long. I know he has a thicker neck than me, but still like this. And I actually have some yarn left. I have a little bit left, not that much, and I think I will make a fringe to attach. So yes, I know it's actually not done. It still needs the fringe. I did give it a good wash in warm water to first of all to see if I was satisfied with the length and everything, and then to see if I could get the smell out, because as I mentioned last time, it has a pretty bad spinning oil smell. The smell is better, but it's still there, and I'm not really happy about it, so I will give it another wash once I attach the fringe, and then hopefully it will be ready to give to my dad. But the yarn did bloom and looks a lot nicer, but I think with the second wash, where you can really get the last bit of spinning oil out, it will be perfect. This one is knit up in 100% wool. It's wool from the Danish website company called Garnudsal, and it's their Highland wool. The colorway is probably not there anymore, because it's a colorway I bought this yarn a long time ago, and I just didn't know what to do with it. But I think this will be really nice once it's completely done. So it's almost a finished object. I'm done with all the knitting. I just need to attach the fringe. So those were my finished objects. Yay! And now let's talk about my works in progress, because last time I showed you the Birkin sweater, which I was knitting up in a yarn from Urso Yarn Co., which is a Canadian hand dyer, and it's so much fun. I mean, it's a big challenge, because right now I'm knitting with 3 strands of colored yarn, so there's a lot of strands to how do you say, to words. I'm not, my words are not coming to me today. But last time I showed you this project, we were I had just finished the leaves, and right now I'm doing I'm started doing the flowers. And actually I had to rip back last night, because I realized I had forgotten to do these 3 stitches here. The rest of the pattern was correct, but I for some reason I forgot those 3 stitches. And since this flower portion, it's pretty long and it's mirrored, so the beginning and the end are the same, and I thought it would be too visible if I didn't go back. So I ripped back about 2 centimeters, and I think that's an inch of color work with 3 strands. So that was it almost hurt my heart. It was it was difficult. I'm working a lot on improving my technique in the color work, because I never really had a proper technique or a certain way I was doing the color work, and with 3 strands you really have to be a little more careful with how you hold the strands. So I've been working on holding the 2 pattern colors, or the colors that are creating the flowers, over 1 finger. Well, they actually all go over the first finger, but then the next one only goes, let me see if I can put it right. Okay, like so. So the 2 first ones go over this finger, and this one go further down. That way you can keep them a bit more separate, and then I will go over and under, and this way I will weave in the floats as I go. And yes, I have some long floats, because some of these rows are just, I don't know, there are a few rows that really I couldn't figure out how to get the technique going, but I'm working on it and I feel it's improving. It's still a bit bumpy. I hope it will block out when I wash it. I haven't tried doing color work with a superwash yarn before, so I'm a little confused as to what to expect. It's not laying so nicely so nicely as I would prefer, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a bit of a challenge, and I really like a challenge when I'm knitting. I also have other projects that are not a challenge, so I have different projects to switch between. But for now, this one is really, it's a lot of fun. And then my other work in progress is this one. Ta-da! It's the beginning of a shawl, so it doesn't really look that interesting because it's just all bulked up. Actually, after I finished recording the last week's episode, I received some yarn in the mail, and this beautiful yarn. It's just gorgeous. It's amazing. It's yarn from Anna by Gregoria Fibers. No. It's yarn from Gregoria Fibers by Anna. And it's a hand-dyed yarn with the natural colors or botanical colors. And this one is on the Teeswater base. So it's a specific breed, sheep breed. And it's a very interesting yarn. I was a bit confused because it said there's a fingering, but the meterage is 200 meters per 100 grams, and for me, that, from what I understand, that should be a DK weight. So I didn't know what to expect, and I can see that the thing is, the strand is pretty thin, but it's a very tightly woven yarn. In the way, it's not lofty at all. It's a pretty solid string, and so if you knit it too tightly, if the gauge is too tight, then it will give you a pretty dense fabric. And I knit it on a 3.5 millimeter needles, and it shouldn't be smaller. At least for my tension, it shouldn't be smaller because it just gets too stiff for some reason. I guess because it's not really lofty. And this is what I've done so far. It's just a garter stitch crescent shaped shawl, but it's a design I'm working on, and all the interesting elements will come in the end. So I can easily show you this because it's not really revealing anything. And I think this yarn, the colorway is amazing. The colorway is called Fur, and it's a very blue, steely gray. I mean, it's mainly gray, but it has this blue tint to it and a little bit of, I don't know, I see almost like pink undertone somewhere, and then brown. It's very interesting because it has a lot of depth, and as I talked about with my green yarn, I really like yarn with a little bit of where you can see different colors when you look closely, and it makes the yarn a lot more interesting. So I like the tonals, like this one as well. Sometimes I like them to be more subtle. This one is very subtle. It looks almost like a solid color, but it just has a little bit of that interesting, yeah. So let me show you the skein. I have one more, and it's not, that has not been wound up, like so. And there you see the name, Gregoria Fibers. It's, there you have the Teeswater, and it says it's a fingering, but as you can see, the meterage is a little bit strange for fingering, at least from, let me know. The thing is, in Denmark, we don't really use the whole system with fingering and DK, and so I'm not quite sure, but that's my understanding, that this one maybe should be considered a DK from the yardage or meterage. I don't know. Can you say meterage? I've heard it before. I guess you can say that. And the colorway is called Fur, and it's just, I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Isn't it pretty? And I got another skein too. And this is gonna be incorporated as well. And look at these two together. I mean, these for me are just, it's the perfect color combination. I love this gray bluish color together with this cinnamony brown warm. I just think it's so pretty. This one is called Tile Brown and is also on the Teeswater base. You can see, and it has the same, it's a fairly solid color, but again with a bit of tonal, yeah, variation in the yarn. So these two are just, I was so happy when they arrived, because of course when you buy yarn online, it's always difficult to, you cannot touch Anna's yarn in real life, and even if it looks really pretty in pictures, you're always a little bit worried how it's gonna look when you get it out of the package, and it was just, it's even better in real life. It's so pretty. So these will go into the shawl, and I will show you more when I get a little bit further. I think that's it for, let me just check my notes. Yep, I don't have anything else. But I did manage to buy some yarn this week, which was not the plan, because the plan was that I was not supposed to buy any more yarn before Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and then something happened. We always find excuses, right, when we want to buy yarn. But what happened is there's a shop in a small town, not like half an hour's drive from where I live, and the shop is closing down, so they had a pretty good sale going on, and I talked to some friends and they also wanted to go, so we decided to take my little car and drive there. So we went there this morning and we got a bit of yarn. We did some damage in the shop. There was not so much left because she had been, since the shop is closing down, she had been putting, every second week she was increasing the, how would you say that? Every second week the yarn would be cheaper. So for the first week it was 20%, and 2 weeks later it was 30%, and this Monday just changed to 40%. And in 2 weeks it will be 50%. But I don't think much yarn will be left because it's both a yarn shop and a web shop. So people are also buying from the web shop. And I was looking on the web shop and I could just see there was less and less yarn. The most popular colorways and yarns were gone. But this shop has a lot of Isager. So I thought it would be interesting to go. And also other yarns. They had Sanne and Fjalland and how's it called, Kamarose and Istex and a bunch of different other yarns. So we went, and it was a bit difficult because many of the colors only had like one skein from this dye batch and one skein from another one, and of course you're always a bit afraid when you're buying from different batches, but I took a chance and I got these 4. So actually it's a little bit confusing because there are 200 gram skeins, so these 200 grams and these 2 are 50 grams, so that's why they're a little bit more floppy, and they're from different dye batches. But I really think, I think they are really close to the same color. I really can't tell the difference, and my plan is to hold it double so I can make sure it's it's even less visible. And it's this beautiful Isager garn. Yeah, I heard a lot of pronunciations of this brand. It's a Danish brand, and it's called Isager. Isager is the last name of the mother and daughter that are behind the company. And yeah, the G should be pronounced soft, so it's like a J sound, Isager, and not a hard G, just so you know. And I got the Spinni, which is the single ply, and as you see it's very thin, very thin, so my plan is to make something with the true strands held double. And I actually have a project in mind. I really want to do I think it's called the Anna's cardigan by Petite Knits. It's just a very simple cardigan with little eyelets all over, and I think it would be very pretty in this colorway. So it's a very warm mustardy. There's no green in it. Sometimes the mustard colors can have a bit of green. This one is very warm, almost brown, cinnamony. Just love this color. It's so beautiful. And they had a lot of mainly Spinni left. There was not so much the other yarn base she has that's called Twinny, not with a W, Twinny. It's a 2-ply, and I really wanted that. You could also get this colorway in that, but there was only one skein left, so I decided to go for this one instead. And normally it's pretty expensive, and I got 40% off, so that was great. And you can see here we have, I guess this is the old label, so this one is a lot prettier, and it's 100% wool from white sheeps. All this information I have from my friend Heidi, because she's really a fan of the Isager, and she told me that when you have the little S on the Isager, it means it's on a gray base. And so you can see here, this colorway is called 3. But if it's called S something, it's because it's on a gray heathered base, and this one is on a white sheep base. And as you can see, it says 100% pure new wool, and it has 600 meters per 100 grams. And yep, I'm looking forward to knitting. It will take, I won't start this project anytime soon. I think maybe I will knit it for the summer, but I really love this color, and I would like to have a nice cardigan in this colorway. And that's actually all I got for me. Oh no, I did get this little thing, which is it's a thing to measure your gauge. So normally you measure out 10 centimeters and count the stitches, but with this one you can go in and lay it flat on top of your knitting, and then you can really fast tell if you are more or less on gauge. And I thought it would be really nice when you're in the middle of a project, for example on the sleeves or somewhere, and you just want to be sure that you're not completely off, and you cannot, maybe you don't have enough stitches to count the gauge. Excuse me, maybe you don't have enough stitches to count the gauge properly, so you can just use this tool, and I'm interested to see if I will use it and how it will work out. So that was what I got for myself, but I did get a little something because I thought that in the near future I would really like to have a giveaway on this channel. So I got 2 little things for the giveaway. I got some more Isager. This skein is again the Spinni base, so it means it's a single ply. But as you can see here on the colorway, it's called S here. So it's XS61, and that means it's on a gray base. As you can see, it's a pink, like soft blush pink on a gray color, on a gray wool base. And it's just, I think this one is it's easy to recognize that this is an Isager, and I thought it would be fun to give one of these away. And it also says here in Danish it's from dark and white sheep. So it's a mix of dark and white, and then you put the color on top and you get this really interesting heathered effect. And so I got 100 grams skein of this, and I have to figure out what kind of giveaway I'm gonna do and what should be the, yeah, but this one. And I got another one from another Danish yarn company, which is called Sanne Fjalland. And I actually never knit with this, but it just looks so nice in the little skein. It's a mustardy yellow. I like the mustardy yellow, and it has again, it's colored. The base is a gray base, so you get this heathered effect, just as with the Isager. And this one is only a 50 gram skein, and it has 225 meters. But I think it's beautiful. It's a really nice yarn. And this one is a 2-ply. I think it's a 2-ply. If you can see. So these 2 will be a little giveaway for some future giveaway I'm gonna do. I just reached 500 subscribers or followers on Instagram, and I thought maybe I should do a giveaway for that, but I don't know. I have to think about it. I like to think what can be the reason behind the giveaway a bit more. Yeah, so I think that's all. Do I have anything else on the floor? Nope. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. So I got some yarn, but this time I didn't buy it myself. I have this wonderful little pile of beautiful Icelandic Plötulopi. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly in Icelandic, but this yarn is basically let me see if I can find, oh, got a message. Let me see if I can find the strand here. There you go. So this yarn is a single ply. Well, it hasn't been plied. It's pretty much just wool. And what happens if you pull it is, sure, it just breaks. But then you can just put it back together. Like, it's not really, you can just work it a little bit, maybe with a bit of spit or water, and it will just, you can continue working. And I got this yarn from my mom. Actually, I didn't get it, but I asked her because she knit some sweaters for the grandchildren in this Plötulopi, and I asked her if I could borrow the yarn because I really want to do a swatch and look at the different colorways. And since I knew she had these ones lying around, I could try to swatch with this, and then I will order for myself later on. But I have a little collaboration design idea for next fall. So it's plenty of time. I'm not really planning to get this ready before it's getting cold again after the summer. That's one thing I'm learning with the whole designing process, is that you have to be really thinking ahead. And I knew that. I mean, I know the designers plan for next year's collection almost a year in advance, or at least half a year. So in the summer you're working on the winter stuff, and in the winter and the summer. I find that so difficult to get my head wrapped around. I don't feel like knitting in cotton yarns or doing summery projects right now, but it's kind of necessary. But I really feel like I have the idea ready for this particular design, and it's actually nice to know that I don't have to hurry, and I can play around with the different colorways. And aren't they beautiful? You just go from the white, the light gray. Oh, sorry, it's starting to get dark outside. It's in the afternoon, so it's going from the white to the light gray here, to the middle gray, darker gray, and the black. And I just think they're quite nice to have, and quite decorative as well. Yep, so that was the last. It's not an acquisition, or I didn't buy it, and I will give it back to my mom once I'm finished swatching and so on. She did give me some other colorways like blue and red and other colors. She used it for an Icelandic sweater, but I'm more interested in the gray tones. I just think they're pretty. So that was the normal part of the podcast, and then I really wanted to add in a section today about my first hand-knit sweater, because on Instagram I have been seeing this this tag going around that people are showing pictures of their first hand-knit sweater, and I was thinking I couldn't remember which one was my first hand-knit sweater, because I've been, well, to start this off, I would have to explain you a little bit about my knitting history. I won't tell you the whole story. I will maybe some other time, but a little bit about my knitting history is I learned to knit as a child, like from my grandmothers, and my mother was a knitter, and knitting has always been around, and I learned to knit. And you actually also learn in school in Denmark. You have a class for it's called håndarbejde, which means handwork. Oh, I'm sure there's a word in English right now, it's not coming to me, but you'll actually have lessons in knitting. And I remember at that point I already knew how to knit, and we were 10 years old, and I could knit square without holes and it looking too weird. So I learned to knit from my grandmother. And then I didn't really knit so much, and as a teenager I remember I wanted to pick it up again, but my main focus was on doing it as cheap as possible, and as so it would often be acrylic yarns or a lot of drops. Drops was very popular for my first knitting adventures, and there were also some techniques I had forgotten, and then I tried to relearn them. But the main thing was I always had this idea that I could just design things for myself. It was not a problem for me, and I knit a lot. Before knitting for myself, I used to knit only presents, so for my nephews, and whenever I needed a present for someone, it was easy to just knit it, and that came really natural to me, but I never really knit for myself. And so I remember when I was living in Copenhagen, when I was studying at university, I I got these ideas that I could knit some stuff and sell it. And I opened up an Etsy shop, and I was knitting cowls and hats and different things. And then, of course, later on, I learned that the knitting takes too long, and you have to buy yarn, you have to put in the time, and in the end, you don't really earn anything, at least not with it's pretty expensive to live in Denmark. So unless you can knit extremely fast, you don't really it's not worth it. So, but I did knit a few sweaters, and I don't know if it's my first sweater. That's the problem. I think my first sweaters were children's sweaters and stuff I did for my nephews. But let me just get the pile and you can see. So I made this, it was back when the whole dip dyeing trend was really popular. So I made this t-shirt. Oh, it's been in the bottom of a basket for I don't know how long. I made this cotton t-shirt in a really thick cotton yarn, and I pretty much just started on one end with the ribbing and knit all the way up, and then did the sleeves, so I increased to have sleeves, and then I did the neck hole and knit all the way down, and then I just seamed it up in the sides. And this was one of my first designs. I've been designing, I've always been just knitting. I didn't really, at that time, I didn't know anything about knitting communities and YouTube videos and stuff. So I didn't swatch, I didn't do much preparation. I just would start knitting, and then if it didn't fit, I would start over and so on. And with this one, I did some dip dyeing. So I dipped it into this light blue aqua color, and it actually was a pretty nice t-shirt sweater, but the problem, I wanted to sell it, and just the price, it was way too expensive, because when you think about what the yarn was worth and then the time I put in and also dyeing it in the end, it just didn't pay off. But I think this might have been my first sweater. I'm not completely sure, but it's a pretty soft cotton sweater. I never used it because, again, I thought I could sell it, and then it didn't sell. I made two. I made another one in a black burgundy with a black dip dye. Those were the dip dye days. Do you remember? I seen it come back a little bit, but it hasn't been that long, so I don't understand why it's already back. But all the sweaters that were dip dyed, it was fun. So that was one, and then I knit another sweater in the same way. It was and that was another trend that I thought was nice and I wanted to have. It was the whole unraveled sweater look. So I made this another cotton sweater, and it's huge. Let me see if I can stand up, and the light is of course going totally crazy. So it's a huge cotton sweater with these sections where I would do yarn overs and then drop them. So you got different like holes in the fabric, and I actually think it's not bad. It was too big. It was falling off my shoulders. And again, it's just knit like a big square that you knit up and then do the neck hole and then knit down. But I actually picked up stitches. I can see that I picked up stitches and did the proper ribbing and the sleeves, and they had all this, and you would always get your fingers stuck in this, but it was those were in my more dark days when I used to like to dress quite alternatively. So this is a huge sweater. I don't wear it anymore, but I can't really get myself to get rid of it. Those are memories. So this might be my first proper sweater that I actually wore and used for myself. And it's again this really soft cotton, big cotton. It's a fun technique, but I mean, I wouldn't probably knit anything with this technique anymore, but it's fun to do. So those were both my own designs, but nothing that I think it's that well constructed or thought out. And then I found this one when I was looking through my old, I have a big basket full of knitwear, and this sweater is again my own design. I just found this knitwear, this stitch pattern, and it's a really chunky, mustardy yellow sweater. I don't know what kind of wool it is. I just remember it was probably not that expensive, so it's probably some acrylic wool blend. And actually I think it's quite nice with this stitch pattern. I had never done it before, I just found it on some website and thought it would be fun. The thing is, I don't have any more yarn, and so I cannot finish the sleeves, and I don't know if I should try to finish it in some way, because actually I think it's quite cute. It's a little bit short, so it would be really nice on top of dresses or skirts, like with skirts, but little square again. But this one is seamed at the top, so it's knit flat and then seamed at the top, and I think it could have been a nice little sweater. But so it's a how you call UFO, never finished UFO. So I used to do a lot of those kind of I used to buy a little bit of yarn, then start something. I would never calculate how much yarn would I need. I would never do swatches. Swatches was like a weird thing for me. It was just, knitting was more like spontaneous and not really thought through as it is today. So yeah, those were some of my first projects. And then I did this little number, which I think is actually really nice. It has these funny little sleeves, tiny sleeves with pompons all over, and it's knit in an angora, I think, yarn, which is one of the problems with this sweater, and that's why I never wear it. But it's so pretty. Look at the little bubbles. Because it's the angora yarn. It's also by Ganusel. They don't have it anymore, but it's just everything gets full of these little blue hairs after I wear it. It's itching my nose. I don't know. It has a really nice little twisted rib. Rib on the sleeves, and the rest of the body is in reverse stockinette. So all in all, it's a nice little sweater. I think it's really cute. But the biggest problem for me, this pattern is by Pickles. I don't remember what it's called. It's called Summer. I will put it a link for it down below. I actually also have a on Ravelry. I have a project page for this one, so you can go and read a little bit more about what yarn I used and my thoughts about it. But the problem is when I wear it, this part, it like bunches up and it's really tight on the neck, just like that. And I don't think it's that flattering, and I always have to fiddle around with it and put it down when I get up, and if I lift my arm, it gets all out of. But it's a very nice little, and I will try to wear it a bit more because it's very nice for a little, almost for formal occasion, or if I have I'm meeting up with family, or I don't know. I think it's very sweet. So this one is Pickles design, and it's one of the first sweaters I think I did according to a pattern that it was for me. I've done, as I said, many patterns for kids and so on, but not for myself. And I remember it was very hard for me to figure out because they had left and right slanted, I call them increases. And I couldn't figure out this whole left and right thing. Now it's easy now it's just something that is not a problem, but it turned out pretty nice. You can see here. Yep. I think I nailed it on some parts, and some parts look a bit wonky. But that was I learned a lot with this little sweater. And then I have another sweater, which I did. I made from using a recipe. So it was not really a pattern. It was more like a recipe. And let me just show the sweater first. It's this one. So I really wanted to have a stripy sweater with these two colors. So this like cinnamony, I still love it. You can see it. The cinnamony yellow and this navy blue. And there are a lot of things with this sweater. I use it quite a lot. I like it. It has really long sleeves. It has a straight body. The sleeves are quite fitted and not that tapered, and I like that because my arms are really thin, and many times I forget to. I don't like when the sleeves in patterns are too tapered because my arm is pretty much the same all the way down. And so I used a recipe, let's say, and it's the Knit Picks Nina sweater class, and I can really recommend this one. It's a lot of reading and calculating, but it's really nice. Also, I knocked down my yarn. There's yarn all over. I just have to watch out I don't burn any of it with my candle. This pattern, it's you can get it online. It has there are different chapters or classes, so yeah, lessons, that's what it's called. So you have the introduction, then you have lesson 1 and so on, and there are also YouTube videos, so you can watch the video and she will guide you through everything, and then you can get the instructions online. And I think it's really great if you want to try designing a sweater for yourself and get into the whole idea of how a sweater is constructed. So there's a lot of construction, and then you have some schematics and about swatches and so on. But here you get into the part about where you put in your so for example your needle size, and then you have to make to put in the number of stitches you have per 10 centimeters or 4 inches and so on. And then in the end it helps you do all the calculations. There's a little drawing where you can see all the numbers, and it really goes into everything and about which kind of neckline you want. And yeah, so I would really recommend this if you want to get used to or get more familiar with the whole sweater math aspect. I wouldn't recommend it if you just want a simple sweater like the one I made. It's not just a recipe for a sweater like this. I guess if you want a simple sweater like this, you should get the, I don't know, the no frill sweater or some other. I'm sure there are plenty of patterns that are just simple sweaters like this. I knit this one. I can actually show you. I have the swatch saved here. Ta-da! So I thought I was quite happy with this little swatch. You see, something happened from the first sweaters, which was without swatching and without doing all these things, and then I got into the whole swatching. I knit this one up in Sanne's alpaca, which is a yarn I probably wouldn't choose today, and it's very nice and soft and everything, but alpaca has some bad reputations for the for growing and some other problems. It's not the most sturdy yarn. I will say though, it's not much bigger than when I made it. I'm really happy with it's quite a tight fit, so it's okay if it grows a bit. And I made on purpose, I did the neck, the bind off quite tight, maybe even a bit too tight. It's like I have to pull it over my head, but this way I'm just sure it's not gonna, if the sweater starts growing, this will keep it together in some way. So there's a little bit of, because this has no seaming, nothing, it's a raglan construction. So this way you're just a little more safe. And I did a tubular cast off, I don't know if you can see, and it's in a 2x2 rib, so I had to, there's a really nice video on, there's probably more than one, but I used a video by, how's she called, While They Play, I think, and she explains how to do the tubular cast on and then convert it, because normally it's for 1x1, and you can convert it into a 2x2 ribbing. And you can see on the bottom edge I did the cast on, and I think it's really nice. So this was a top bottom up bottom up construction. So there are a few things I'm not so happy about with this sweater. One thing is the alpaca, because I think the stitches, maybe you can't see, but they're not that smooth. They don't really relax and they don't really relax and fall into the fabric, so they're quite visible. And although it's not, you have to get up close, but it bothers me. I would prefer a sweater like this in a wool, with the knowledge I have now about how the different fibers behave. But it's still a really nice sweater. It seems really soft, but it can be a bit itchy. So even though alpaca has this, it's a very soft yarn and whatnot, but for me it can be quite itchy, so I have to wear it always with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, which I do with all my wool sweaters. But and what more did I want to say? Yeah, I tried to do the to keep the strand between the color when I was changing the colors, and yeah, you can see like here it doesn't look that nice. I tried different techniques. I tried getting rid of that little, when you change between two colors in the round, you get like a little, how they call it in English, I don't know, today my brain is not really working with all the words today. So I tried different methods, and one sleeve I had 5 million ends to weave in. No, it was not on that sleeve. And on the other sleeve I just kept pulling the strand, but up to the next color, but I didn't really like the effect. And the last thing is, as you can see when you wear it, the neckband pulls up the last stripe, and I probably would have preferred not to have the last stripe and just have a darker, just the blue on top, so you don't get this weird wonky stripe on top. But these are small details, and I learned a lot from the sweater. It was a really nice project. So I would really recommend the Nina's sweater class. I will try to put a link if I can find it, also to the YouTube videos, and it's a lot of fun to get to know sweater constructions. So the last two, I have the one I'm wearing, of course. So this cardigan is my first cable cardigan. Let me just turn around and see if you can see. And I knit it 2 years ago, I think, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. And the only thing I changed, I modified a bit, is I made it, I think I added in one whole repeat of this diamond shape, so it got quite a lot longer because it's a shorter thing. And also I did a modification on the sleeves. There was another, I think the diamonds were going down the middle, and then these things on the side, and I just thought it was way too busy. I really like the sleeves to be less bulky. I mean, they're still big sleeves, but now they only have the braid and these little cables, and the rest is in a moss stitch. I knit this one in Fjalland yarn. I don't remember how it's called, Tweed. Again, it's all on my Ravelry page. I can put a link. And it's not, it's a superwash yarn. So that was at the time I started to be more aware of the superwash process, and I thought a lot about it. I really wanted to find this kind of tweedy, oatmeal-y colored yarn with the blackish and brownish specks. I looked for it everywhere, but it was really hard for me to find a yarn that ticked all the boxes and that would fit with the pattern, and at least that was not crazy expensive. Or so I decided on this yarn mainly for the reason that my daughter was really small and she was spitting up quite a lot, and so I thought, instead of buying, knitting this up in a really beautiful wool and then get spit up on it and get all kind of nasties on it, it would be much better just to do it in a superwash so I could wash it. And so that was my idea, because it's a white and I really didn't want to have a stinky, disgusting sweater. Now I'm a bit sad I didn't knit it up in a real wool, because this kind of cabley sweater, it reminds me of, it should be a proper wool, and I don't know. But I'm really happy about it anyways, and I think it's a beautiful sweater. The only thing that I haven't figured out is this flappy thing going on, because when I attached the rib band, it just started doing this. And I'm not quite sure if I can fix it in any way, so if you have any suggestions on how to fix the button band, that would be really nice. It's a really oversized, it's a really grandpa fit, and I would say I did the sleeves smaller than the pattern said. They're just enormous and huge, but I use this, actually I use it a lot in the summer as a kind of a jacket, so if it's cold, so I think it's very nice. And you can see it's seamed up here, and then the cable runs all the way down, and there's a lot of this moss stitching going on on the sides and it seamed here, so you knit it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. 5 pieces, and it was a pretty easy knit, and I'm happy I tried to do a really little more complicated cable sweater. I wouldn't say this is complicated, but there's a lot of cabling going on, but once you get into it, it's really easy to memorize. And I realized something funny about most of the sweaters I've done is every time I pick a different technique. So I have this one is my cable sweater. I did the Angora bubble sweater. I did the sweater constructions. I have done the cotton sweaters. And then the one I showed you last time, which is my the design that's coming out next week, is this one, which has the nice brioche part on top. And again, new, different construction, different yarn. I guess I just really like to change it up. Once I try the technique, I like to learn a new one, and yeah, I talked about this last time, so I'm not gonna talk about it again. And the whole idea with this tag was my first sweater, and so this one is the more recent one, and I have the green one that I just showed you. But I thought it was funny that I didn't have that many sweaters from the past because I just knit for other people. I didn't knit for myself. I knit hats and weird scarves, and I have a lot of those kind of projects lying around. Oh. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about this episode. Let me just take a look at my... yes, and I actually have 2 more things. So I have a little tip when you're doing a sweater, especially in the round, and probably most of you know about this tip, but I just realized when my testers were knitting up the sweater I just showed you that they were not trying on the sweater as they were knitting, because of course with the needles, with the circular needles, it can be hard to try it on, and sometimes you just don't do it. But this little thing is amazing. My friend showed it to me, and this little thing just, it made it so much easier. This is a cable connector, so if you have a cable and you're knitting on it and you want to try on your sweater, you can just take this, remove the needle, connect it to the cable, and then put on another cable. And this way you can make your, it makes it a lot easier to try on sweaters. And this one came with my Lykke needle set, and I had never heard about them before because I don't know why, but they come in a lot of, I guess if you buy a set of needles, they generally come with those, but you can buy, I think you can buy them individually. So that's a really nice little trick if you are knitting sweaters in the round and you just want to try it on and be sure that the measurements are right and so on. So that was my little tip for today. And then I have one last thing. I wanted to end off the podcast by saying I made a Ravelry group. It's not looking like anything yet. I just opened it and I have a little introduction thread. So if you want to go and say hello, I think it would be very nice to get to know people. I got, as I said, messages in different places, and I also think it would be nice if the people commenting could get to know each other. So I think a little introduction thread would be nice. And also for the future giveaway of these 2 beauties, I think it would be more practical with the Ravelry group. So I opened it up, and I will probably add a picture and stuff later on, but for now it's just a very simple group. And I think that's all. I have to say I found this episode a little bit harder to film because now I know people are watching and I have some expectations to, I don't know, last time I just sat down and recorded and I didn't really think too much about it, and this time I'm thinking and what I want to show and so on. But I think I just have to get into a bit of a rhythm with the podcast, and we will see. I will try to record once a week if I can. This time it was a bit difficult, so I didn't record. I couldn't record on Friday like I did last time, and I can't record in the weekends because my daughter is home, and I don't know how people with kids home are doing it, but for me it's just I can't focus if too many things are going on around me. So I will try to record maybe Fridays or Mondays, and if I have something to say. And if I don't have anything to say, like if there's a week where I'm not knitting so much or I'm still haven't done much on the different projects, then I won't be doing an episode. But this one was a bit of a long one because I decided to pull out all of my old sweaters, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless, and I hope to see you next time. And please put a comment to the Ravelry group and say hello, or feel free to send me a message anywhere if you feel like, and I will see you next time. Bye!